Um, well, we want to welcome Jeff Young from Megadeth, the long, long time guitar player, one of the legends. And we are happy to have him here in Rally Music Productions. A lot of people already know us in South America, and especially Latin America and Italy and Spain. So we're gonna know a little bit about some more about the history about this great musician, and well, we want we want to know the new projects, the new the new music he's probably recording at this moment. Everything is coming from him. We want to know it today. So he's gonna be open to ask for questions for people. Some people are gonna see this later, some people are gonna see it like very long later. But everybody who wants to ask a question later and leave a message and leave a comment, whatever you want, we're gonna let him know, and he might probably gonna be answering as soon as possible. All right. So, Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
Hola,
Hola a
tudo
todos.
bom, tudo jóia, boa noite, all my friends and amigos in Latin America. My name's Jeff Young. You might see that there on the screen there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I pick some guitar, and I also do a radio show every week called
Nice,
Music
nice.
Without Boundaries.
Great. Uh, we want to know a little bit about the new projects coming out. I see that you have a new music project coming in.
And indeed, as we all know and are probably feeling in no uncertain terms, 2020 was a whirlwind of a year, and for musicians, it was very challenging, and we had to reinvent ourselves in
Yes.
the way we approach the music business. Because there's, I got to do one live show in 2020 before the lockdown of my world tour. I got to do one performance,
Yes.
and so I had to rethink it. But you can always turn lemons into lemonade, as they say. And I managed to get three singles released last year, three instrumental singles with some amazing musicians in tow. They're all available on my Bandcamp. You
Well,
can listen to them free. And if you want to grab them, that's also cool. The link is instrumentalguitar.net. And so that was my last year. And this year, I'm hoping to get out even more music than that. I'm working on a couple new singles right now, an instrumental song called Wave Rider. I'm going to shoot for like just before summer because it's a real kind of summery, kind of Van Halen, Badlands,
oh yeah.
Satriani kind of instrumental. And I have Joe Hoekstra, the guitarist from Whitesnake and Night Ranger and Trans Siberian Orchestra. He's joining me on this track for some guest guitar soloing on the track. So that's pretty cool. And I'm also releasing a vocal tune with an amazing female vocalist as yet to be announced. She's working on the track right now. I think she's recording vocals this weekend in Los Angeles.
Well,
Amazing female vocalist. The song's called Gypsy Soul.
can we know the name of
And
the person, or it's just like
uh, we'll
not
leave
yet?
that for people to discover when we start announcing. But I don't know
Okay.
if you see my new dobro guitar. I got this
Yeah, that's a
fine
beautiful
recording
guitar.
King dobro guitar right there. And the song was kind of inspired by a guitar player who I really love named Chris Whitley. He's
Whoa.
passed away, but anybody who doesn't know Chris Whitley's music, you're shaking your head like you do. And
It is a legend. I know him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that should be coming out real soon. I'm hoping to finish that within the next couple months and get that out ASAP. So I'm hoping to get, if I did three last year, let's shoot for six this year.
Well, so let us know a little bit about your guitars. What kind of guitar are you using? I see two different guitars right there. I see an acoustic guitar and electric guitar. I
Well,
mean,
there's a lot of guitars all around me.
yeah.
The
What kind
camera
of
can't
brand?
see them all.
What's the brand? The perfect brand for you? I mean, I
I
use
can I can
Ibanez.
quickly like kind of just pick up and show you some guitars here.
Yeah, nice. That will be
I
nice.
mentioned this is my new Dobro that I'm using, and I'll just kind of bring them close to the camera once I talk about them and when I go to put them away. It's made by Recording King. I just started endorsing their guitars this week. I've been looking for a dobro. I just, sometimes when you write a song, I wrote it on a dobro in open G tuning, which is basically the guitar tune to an open G chord. It's also known as Spanish tuning, which is kind of interesting because I always refer to flamenco as kind of the blues of Spain. And it's interesting that a lot of the blues players from America
Mm-hmm.
used this open G tuning. Likewise, did a lot of Spanish guitar players.
Yes.
So the tuning is known by two names. It's known either as the Spanish tuning or the open G tuning. And, you know, every song, Joe Perry from Aerosmith had a, saying in the interview I read once, in every guitar that I get, there's at least one song in it. And, I'd
Wow.
like to
It's like
kind of
collecting guitars from
divide
everybody.
my time between different types of guitars instead of just playing acoustic music all the time or electric music all the time. I think it's cool to mix it up.
Yes,
So
of
my
course.
my new single will be on this guitar, but it also has a Flying V, on it, and some other kind of guitars layered on it.
Yeah. The
You might see back here.
yeah, I see that one right there is. I seen that one before. I think you played with that one live one time.
I haven't used this live yet because
No.
it's a new one. I do have in the case behind there. I got the Dime from Hell, which has the blue lightning bolts.
Okay. It seems looks
I
familiar
did
though.
use this though on my newest, well, second newest single called "Slow Burn." That's on my
Okay.
Bandcamp that I mentioned. Uh, I wanted kind of a Queen, Boston, Thin Lizzy harmony thing in the chorus of the tune. So I ended up doing on different guitars because I didn't want to stack the same guitar. Like if I did all three tracks on this or all three tracks on a Stratocaster, you're just given the same tonality. So it doesn't give you as much color. So I use this on the middle harmony. So if you listen to Slow Burn, you got a good ear and you can pick out the middle harmony in the chorus. I use this on that.
Yeah. What kind of pickups do you use in that one? This DiMarzios.
It's the Seymour. It's the Duncan Dime Buckers. It's the
Okay. Just doubles, huh?
Dimebag Darrow pickups. So there's two hiding in there. This is my
That's
Strat. You know,
yeah.
if you
Yeah.
got a Strat, I think in either Les Paul or Flying V for electric, you're covered. As you can see, it's got a scallop neck.
Oh yeah, I can see that. You might have a lot of noise with that one. I mean, it's perfect
I've been
to
using
high
scalp necks
notes.
since Megadeth. It wasn't a Fender. I was using Tom Anderson necks, but I made him scallop all my necks for me. I started doing it when I was going to GIT. The first neck I ever scalped, I did by myself, and I kind of messed it up. But uh,
Yeah, because
this is a
it has
great
to be.
guitar. This is the Yngwie Malmsteen signature,
Oh, okay.
and it's killer. And that's the guitar that you'll hear on all the leads on all the stuff that I really on in the flesh is my
Okay.
other instrumental and slow burn.
When you used to
I use
record,
this on all the leads on that.
you record with the Fender guitar, or you record with a different guitar when you do
It
the
was this
recording.
style. I mean, it was the Megadeth album was it was what I used on that album was a white Tom
Uh-huh.
Anderson Strat with a scallop neck.
Wow. Yeah.
He was out in Thousand Oaks, California, and I'd been using his guitars. And yeah, so that's what I used in Megadeth. And by the time I left Megadeth, I think I had 4 different colors of Tom Anderson.
Wow.
Then
That sounds great.
our Latin listeners will appreciate this. Uh, my new
Yes.
single, my newest single is it's a solo guitar piece, instrumental, only on nylon string
Yeah.
guitar, no other instruments. It's called Fuoco Liber Sonatina. It's actually a composition by an amazing French composer named Roland Diaz. He's also passed away, but he was a amigo of mine and just a brilliant composer, one of the most magical, gifted composers on this instrument, and also improvisers. He was a great improviser. And this song, Fuoco, that I just recorded, uh, is probably one of the most difficult guitar pieces I've ever heard, and beautiful. And it's got all the elements in there. I mean, it sounds like shred guitar on a nylon string, but it's got flamenco,
Oh,
it's got
flamenco.
blues, there's even a couple country licks. It's a beautiful piece. So, and I literally recorded that sitting right here with this mic sitting right in this studio here
Yeah.
into a little mixing board into my computer, and it was just a live recording. So that's my new single. And
So
I want to
that
mention this guitar company because they're doing a lot to help.
yeah, just do it.
Uh,
What
it's
company is
a
that one?
it's they are heavy in the Latin and Mexican music world. The company is H. Jimenez. J
Oh,
I
okay. Yes.
the letter H period Jimnez, H. Jimenez.
Okay. For everybody in
And
Mexico that hearing
they're
this,
they're amazing, and they support so many Latin artists, and from amazing Latin artists that play accordion and all the different instruments, including baju quinto, baju sexto, all the traditional instruments this company makes, and they got an amazing quality. This is a $400 guitar, and it sounds better than guitars that I've played that cost $8,000, $10,000. So I can't say enough about this company. It's, I know a lot of you folks out there love nylon string guitar. Brazilian
yes.
in Brazil, there's a nylon string guitar in every household. And the second I picked this up when it got delivered here, I was like, that's how a nylon string guitar should sound. And so you guys can hear that on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/JeffYoungTube. And it's the newest video entitled Fuoco Libre Sonatina. And I hope you enjoy that. And just a couple more beauties to show. I got one in a case. I got a George Benson jazz box. It's a George Benson signature, but I just put, because I don't
Yeah.
have enough guitar stands here, I got to get a guitar stands.
What
This
kind
is
of
my
guitar is that one? That one
guitar.
looks
And
like a
again,
Martin.
this is a great lesson for guitar players out there. I've played guitars from every price range. The flamenco guitar I used on my solo album Equilibrium, it was like a world fusion, like mixing rock and flamenco and Brazilian.
Yeah.
That's on iTunes. I used a $20,000 flamenco guitar, but you don't need necessarily the. It's like a car. Just because a car might be expensive or have a great name doesn't mean it's necessarily a great drive.
You're totally right.
This guitar, I went to buy strings at a guitar center in Las Vegas. I was going to buy strings, which should have cost me about $20. I ended up in the acoustic guitar room and I saw this guitar hanging on the wall with this stencil. All right.
Okay.
Nice.
Grateful
And I know
Dead.
that Alvarez makes
Yes.
amazing sounding guitars. So I pulled it off the wall and I saw that it was $400 out the door. And I
That's-
started playing it, and I ended up doing like a shootout, comparing it to all the guitars on the wall. Had my friend pull down the best Martins, the best Taylors, all these different brands. This guitar beat all of them hands down. Then I took it home. I bought it that day. I didn't get out of the store for $20 that day, but I ended up buying the guitar, took it home, and compared it to a Martin that I owned that was $6,500.
Yeah, Martin are
Wow.
expensive.
I ended up selling the Martin on eBay to a guy in Germany because this guitar, this $400 guitar, was better than. So you can't go by price. And I just showed you, a $400 classical, a $400 steel string. Some guitars are more expensive, but you got to use your ear. And I have one more I can show.
Hola, mi Rafa.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, Luisito.
Estamos aquí mirando la colección de guitarras de
This
Jeff.
is
Puta, está increíble.
this is my
Oh, I recognize that one.
this you've probably seen me play live on my YouTube, and I've used it on my first single from my instrumental album Monsoon that's been out for a while. This is an amazing. It's a 2010 Gibson.
There's not a lot of
It
them.
was Michael Schenker, but I just punched him and I ran away with it. It used to belong to Michael Schenker, but just joking. I always tell my friends I mugged Michael Schenker and I just ran away with it.
I'm gonna show it to him, and I'm gonna say, "Hey, you remember this guitar? Somebody punched you for this?"
It's an amazing guitar. So I got all the sounds covered. There's a couple like I need a 12 string, and I could use a Django style guitar, Django Reinhardt, because those are silk strings that are on gypsy guitars.
I never saw you playing with a Jackson guitar. I always see you with Gibsons and stuff like that, but never saw you with any Jackson. So
Me?
it's because you don't like Jackson, or you don't like Ibanez or something like that.
When I was in Megadeth, they wanted me to play Jacksons, and I had one built, and I didn't care for it that much.
Yeah, it's kind of a little different than.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing Gibsons and Fenders, and the Tom Anderson, it was just a cut above because he was a small boutique maker.
Yeah.
He was kind of like a Wayne Charvel. He was kind of that kind of guy. And now players from Keith Richards, so many players use Tom Anderson guitars, but I think I was one of the first people in the public eye to use Tom Anderson.
All right, let me present you. Let me introduce you.
Yes, you got some friends joined us.
Yeah, right here. I'm gonna start with Guillermo Pacheco. He is a producer.
Jeff.
He's
Cheers.
engineer too, studio engineer, and he's a drummer. And he's a very good drummer in Mexico. And then we go to Luis Huerta. He is a drummer, producer, playtime Latin Grammy winner, and a good friend too, and an awesome drummer too. So
Hi, Jeff. It's a
Hola.
huge pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm always looking for good drummers for my tracks. So.
Oh, man. It would be a pleasure for sure. Yeah. You're such a legend, not only with Megadeth, but for your own. So I'd be glad to do that. How's it going?
It's going good. I can't complain.
That's cool.
Pretty good.
Complain.
What are you
It could
doing
be
right
worse
now?
Considering, it's crazy outside my window in the world out there, but inside, I call this the treehouse studio. Everything's
Okay.
chill. Everything's
Where do you live, Jeff?
I'm in New York,
Wow.
New York City.
Oh, wow.
or
Just
you're
all
outside,
right.
just actually over the river. I can see the whole Manhattan skyline.
so you live in this
Wow.
in the northeast side of the city, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm close enough. I can be in the city, but there's nothing really going on there now. It's pretty much
You're the
Los
same as right
Angeles and New
here.
York aren't having a good time of it. So I stay here and I play guitar and I ride. I have a Tour de France style bike, a road bike, not a mountain bike. And this is like the second most hilly city in the USA where I live.
It is cold
Lots of
right there right
hills,
now,
so
is it?
I go riding, and as a matter of fact, I do that for my health because I'm a cancer survivor.
Wow.
Wow.
And Lance Armstrong's, I had the same type of cancer that Lance Armstrong had, the cyclist, and his doctor was the same doctor who cured me. And I got into cycling kind of as a rehab and as for my health to recuperate. And I'm 12 years past my cancer now. And I've been riding for a long time, but I was on the sidewalk, literally just 30 seconds from our front gate on the sidewalk. I hadn't even crossed the street and got on the street yet. And someone in a Mercedes Benz, they were on their cell phone. And I stopped my bike and I looked at him. Both feet were on the ground and he was on his phone. And there was full traffic in the street, 4 lanes of traffic, and he couldn't go anywhere. So I pushed my pedal one time and I was right in front of his car and he spaced out and let his foot off the brake and his front end started rolling over me and my bike and I started going under his car. We hit the ground. So about 4 months ago, I was so injured. I came home and I picked up my Strat. I couldn't play a E chord. I didn't know if I'd ever play guitar again. And
Wow.
so when you see my new single, Fuoco, that was kind of my rehab. I use that song because every measure in that song's kind of like a magic trick. And there's a lot of hand contortions. It's very complex, a lot of flamenco moves and classical moves. So I used that and I had to crawl through it. It was very painful, but I'm playing guitar again, so that's good. But that's what I
You
do.
look pretty good.
I play guitar, ride my bike, and I got a little buddy here. My little buddy. Oh, mascot.
Cute one.
This is Tallulah.
Cholula. How's it going,
She's
Cholula?
the studio mascot.
Okay, pretty good. She's amazing. I gotta tell you, Jeff, you look pretty good.
Yeah.
For all you've been through, you look excellent.
Yeah, I'm 59. Knock on wood. I got a desk here. So I never really drank or partied, and I stopped eating fast food, and I've eaten healthy since probably 1984. So
Wow, it's been a
riding,
while.
cycling, and I do yoga.
That's why. That's why.
Yeah.
Not eating fast food. Yeah.
Yeah, and not drinking and not party. I
Yeah.
mean, we should all do that.
I mean, well, you can see if you look at the other folks who are my age that burn their bridges, that's a life choice that my choice was I wanted to play guitar as long as I could. And I feel like I'm just getting out of the gate. Like I released 3 instrumental singles last year that I'm really proud of. And I got, 2 more ready to come out. 3 more ready to come out here early this year. And so I feel as excited about music as I did in my 20s. As far as making music, the thing that's depressing is the state of the music business. It's a lot harder. It's easier because of the internet to get your music out there, but it's a lot harder to reach people because people aren't listening to music. Their ears aren't working anymore.
It's very ironically,
They're caught up in a lot of other stuff.
yeah, that the music
How? Yeah. Please, Guille, go.
I mean that the music it's at the reach of everyone, and no one is listening to the music, to the real music. Yeah, it's so hard.
Well, I mean, the problem is you've got the beast system. I mean, it's the same people that are doing this scamdemic. It's the same people that rig sports. It's the same people that, take your tax money that you work hard for. The Hollywood beast system, the music that they're putting out. I mean, if you compare, let's go back. I was so thankful to grow up in the 1970s and the music, and even into the 80s and somewhat in the 90s. I did on my radio show couple months ago. Each week for 4 weeks, I did the 70s, all music from the 70s, all music from the 80s, all music from the 90s, then music from the 2000s. So for each show, I had to research what the music in the 70s was easy to do, because I grew up in so much great music, and the bands were so diverse. What you would hear on mainstream radio in the 70s, I'm getting chills talking about it to you guys,
Yeah.
was so it was beautiful. I mean, you had bands from, Jethro Tull to Yes to Zeppelin, right, to The Who, just on and on. I mean, you guys know all the bands.
Yeah.
The 80s was still cool. Obviously, music getting heavier, a lot more focus because of Van Halen on shredding. Eddie Van Halen did for guitar what Bruce Lee did for martial arts, right?
Hmm.
So all these kids picking up guitars. When I started playing guitar, there wasn't as many people playing guitar because Eddie hadn't come out yet. My influences were Michael Schenker and Jimmy Page and Ronnie Montrose and Johnny Winter. Um, but in the 80s, many more people beginning to pick up guitar, moving to California to go to GIT, Guitar Institute of Technology in Hollywood, which is exactly what I did in 1984. And I did it, one, because I wanted to be in the school, and I knew that's where Tommy Tedesco from the Wrecking Crew was there teaching, and Frank Gambale was there teaching,
Oh,
and
Wow.
Scott Henderson was there
Whoa.
teaching. And Eddie Van Halen,
wow, wow.
Alan Holsworth jammed for the students. The year before I went there, I'm like, I got to be at this school. But I also knew that it would put me in Hollywood where I could make connections. And that's where the music industry was happening in the 80s. You either had to be in Hollywood or New York. And it was two different ways of breaking into the music business. So those two radio shows I did in the 70s and 80s, and they're in the archives at jeffyoungjams.com. You can go listen to, I got going on 10 years of shows. I've had guests from Pat Travers to John Five to the singer from Kansas, just so many amazing guests on my show. Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses. And that's jeffyoungjams.com is my radio show. Then when I got to the 90s and 2000s, it was trickier in my research to put the shows together because I found that radio, the music got very narrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There wasn't this diversity, but all the bands started sounding the same, right? And everything was compressed, so there was no dynamics anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So there's no
Yeah,
loud and
so
soft.
true.
Everything is just loud all the
Very
time.
loud.
Even the soft parts are loud. Right.
Yeah.
And that's also partially to do with the fact of the shift from analog recording on 2-inch analog tape, which I still do. And when you hear Gypsy Soul, the song I'm doing on my dobro, I was telling you about at the top of the interview, we did it to 2-inch tape. I still record everything old school. We could talk about that more if you want. But the 2000s, I found that on radio, where you could find good music on radio in the 70s and 80s, what you will find on the radio in the 90s and 2000s is much more homogenized. It's much more in the box, less imagination, less dynamics. So it was harder to put the show together, but still amazing music being released. You just had to dive deeper and do your research. It was bands
Yeah.
like Archangels, Charlie Sexton and Doyle Bramall and Stevie Ray Vaughan's Rhythm Section, this band that put out one album, just amazing. There were so many bands. If you go back and listen to my 90s and 2000 show, if you listen to the whole series, you'll hear the difference. You'll recognize a lot of the songs on the 70s week and on the 80s week. And when you get to the 90s and the 2000s, it's going to be more music that I found in my own research going off radio, out of the mainstream, right? And finding bands that were more cult status bands, more bubbling under the surface, right? But still amazing music is being made to this day. I'd like to think I'm one of the folks doing that independently, but you got to do it independently, like pirate radio, pirate music, using your internet skills to talk to your fans and crowdfunding, because there's no record companies, right? So crowdfunding's the new business model. So if your fans, and I urge my fans on my radio show and on my social media, it's like, I hope you're digging what I'm doing and you want to invest in my music, in the radio show, and help me take this higher. But if it's not me, just find anyone, another musician, 2, 3, a sculptor, a painter, a dancer, an author. Go support these people, because that's the only way that music and art that's made from the inside out, from the inside out of a person's soul, as opposed from the outside in, informed by like a record company telling you what to do, or what's the latest fad in music, or what's the latest fashion to dress, or how you look, or any, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm all about music without boundaries. That's the title of my radio show, and that's the mantra how I live my life. I mix every genre, from metal to flamenco to Brazilian and blues and classical and jazz, because there's something beautiful about all. It's like making a enchilada or a jambalaya. You're making a stew, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the fresh sounds can come from, because we've all heard like pure rock and roll and pure flamenco and pure classical, and there's been so many great artists, over the years, that I think the best sounds can come from seeing how similar our musical love is from culture to culture. When I toured, whether it was with Megadeth, or I had a Brazilian project on Verve Records that went to #1, and we toured all over the world. And I lived in Brazil for 4 years. Wow. And what I learned, it doesn't matter what language you speak, where you live on this planet, we're all the same. When Bob Marley said we are one, he wasn't just whistling Dixie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone, I remember sitting in Spain. I was in a restaurant, beautiful restaurant, and it was packed. And I was just sitting back and taking it in, and people were laughing and eating and drinking sangria, which I'm drinking right now. Cheers. And then they go home for their siesta, and they rest or make love, and the stores close. And that's when I realized everyone's the same. That's what we want. We want to be with friends. We want to have good music and good drinks and food and conversation and love and laughter. And that's what it's all about. And the more I toured the world doing music, the more I learned that. And I just started bringing the musical styles together, because I was loving this aspect of flamenco, or this aspect of, the samba rhythms, or these amazing rhythms that no one knows about from Bahia and the northeast of Brazil, So bringing these all together and still keeping that rock attitude, you know what I'm saying? Where it doesn't sound like you're in a National Geographic or a documentary about flamenco, or, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I want it to rock.
Sound natural. Yes, yes.
Yep. I want to ask you something. I just was listening to a post, and it says right there that Megadeth tried to come back, and they reached to you and tried to get you back to Megadeth. It is true, or it's just like conspiracy theory that's coming up around?
Was it something you saw on Blabbermouth or out there on the internet when Dave wrote me a letter about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it was 3 years ago. There's a show in my back episodes. If you guys want to go listen to it, I give the whole scoop on Megadeth and can save a lot of time today repeating
Okay.
the same story by just go back to that episode. It's called I Got a Letter. It might be called Truth Sells, but Who's Buying? I Got a Letter. I can share it on my Music Without Boundaries radio show Facebook when we hang up so you guys can find it easy. But out of the blue, the webmaster from Megadeth.com, his name's Dave McRobb, forwarded me a letter that Dave Mustaine wrote to me.
Hmm.
Um, and it was apologizing for a lot of the lies that he's said in the press about me all these years, because pretty much everything that he's said about me has been untrue. And he was trying to make amends a little bit and said that he thought Megadeth was going to be getting in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He thought like next year, and it obviously hasn't happened yet. So I don't know what's happening with
But
that.
the
But
thing
he
is, because
just asking me
Metallica
if I
went
would
to
be
it.
there on and accept the award with them.
Okay.
And so my answer was to do that show. I answered him. I read the letter. If you want to hear the letter, I read it on the air, and I answered him on the air in no uncertain terms.
All right. Yeah. The thing is, Metallica came up into the rock, uh, you know,
Hall of
in the
Fame.
Hall of Fame, and
Mhm.
everybody was thinking about if Dave's gonna be there. You know why? Because he was
There's, I
exactly.
guess there's talk about it. So if it happens in the next couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised.
You never know. It's been already years, and they haven't get called back, so I'm not
I'm
sure.
not real big on the rock and roll Hall of Fame. So, and I'm not real big on Dave. So I don't know that I would do it.
Well,
I'm on to such a different style of music. Like I don't play metal. I
not
mean,
anymore.
what I play there's elements of metal here and there, but
Yeah.
I don't like screaming. I don't like any vocals when the singer starts sounding like a Cookie Monster or screaming in my face. I'm out.
Yeah.
Like I dig Pantera. I love Dimebag,
Yeah.
and I like the way Phil
Yeah.
sang.
Yeah. That's totally different.
And I like King Diamond, them album. I think that's killer because I love the two guitar players, Andy LaRocque and the other guy on King Diamond, are amazing. But it's like Andy Summers from The Police said in an interview, like why he's gone on to so many different style of music, and he's doing a lot of jazz now. He said, like, once you can play that style and you've done everything that you can do, and you can sit down, and if you could figure out any song you want by ear, there's no challenge for you anymore, right? So you look for other things, just like a painter
Exactly.
or a dancer. You're not going to just dance the same style your whole life, right? So it's natural, and I think it's interesting that if you look at uh, Alex Skolnick from Testament, who
Yeah.
went to Berkeley
Yeah.
Hmm.
and moved into jazz. He's still doing the Testament. Marty Friedman, who moved to Japan, and he's doing J-pop and this totally different style of music. And Chris Poland has this jazz trio that's kind of like Alan
Yes.
Holdsworth, Mahavishnu. Amazing.
It's a lot of
Chris is
fusion on it.
one of my favorite players, and he's a friend. He's been on my radio show. His episodes in the back archives. Uh, all of us have started in thrash and metal, and then we went on to other styles of music, which is kind of interesting. Hold on a second. Upgraded. Okay. So yeah, then I started, I've always, from 16, when Randy Rhoads came out and Eddie was doing Spanish Fly, I started taking classical guitar lessons when I was 16. So I was always doing that, and it was always in the background. Uh, I just started getting more and more into Brazilian music and flamenco. I heard the album. It was called Passion, Grace, and Fire by Aldimiola, John McLaughlin, and Paco de Lucia.
Wow.
It's not the Friday Night Live in San Francisco that everybody loves. It's the studio album. That's the one that turned my world upside down. And that was 2 years before I went to California. So that was 1982. That album was released. All my solos on the Megadeth album, I'm trying to just basically do what I heard Paco doing on an electric guitar instead of a flamenco, because there was no flamenco teachers in Dayton, Ohio, where I grew up, or even at GIT in
Yeah.
Hollywood. There was no, so, but I love that style. So I understood the scales and the modes. And again, what we were talking about, how similar music, not how different we are as people or how different music is for culture to culture, but how similar we are and how similar music is. Some of the same modes and progressions, this E to F, your open E chord, half step to your first F bar chord, that half step Phrygian mode harmonic minor that you hear in flamenco was the same exact chord progression I was soloing over on the Megadeth songs. Same thing, just played with a different attitude through a Marshall stack on an electric guitar. So the scales were the exact same. So I was just doing flamenco gypsy licks because I have this passion for like gypsy players and gypsy music. Django Reinhardt, flamenco, which is all the southern Spain, Andalusia region. And so I was already doing world music on the Megadeth album. Just the
Wow.
metal fans they didn't hear it because it was set how it was framed in that picture frame.
Sure.
But I learned living in Brazil, we have a huge metal band, Iron Maiden, and many of their songs are based around this galloping rhythm like a horse. Dun, 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 dun. Run to the
Yes.
hills,
Yeah.
like run to
Yeah.
the hills. Well, there's a rhythm from the northeast of Brazil called cavaquinho that's played with folk instruments, and they start playing it. I'm at a beach party with a campfire, and they're playing. It's dun, 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 but it's on acoustic instruments instead of through Marshall stacks with electric guitar. I said, see how similar we all are,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
Iron
Yes.
Maiden, Run to the Hills, or some Brazilians at a campfire party on a Friday night with their folk instruments and their panderos and their berimbau. It's that was one of my hugest lessons traveling the world, and what I try to bring to music, uh, that I think is maybe unique to someone who just is from America, or maybe a guitar player who just plays metal or just plays jazz or just plays blues, because I love all of it. And Steve Morse, guitarists like Steve Morse are players that, and the Dixie Dregs were one of my earliest influence, and he did everything. Always on every album, Steve Morse would play
Yes.
classical guitar, electric. They would have a country song with chicken picking. They'd have a rock song, a funky tune, and I've always loved that. So that's kind of where my
I,
musical
I,
feel comes from.
I once told a friend of mine, modal improvisation started with Monteverdi
True that.
centuries ago. You're so true, Jeff. You are so true. And it seems to me that you, first of all, you love music. You don't just love the instrument, you love music, and that's one thing to really learn from you. I love that, man. I love that.
Yeah.
And well, everything as well as I was going to ask, you already answered. I mean, your first heroes, your background, the GIT, your projects, career, and stuff. I wanted to ask you, how did you manage to survive? Pretty much doing what you please, because as far as I can hear, you never really gigged, right? I mean, you always did what you wanted to.
Yeah, you pay a price for that
A big price.
because I'm not so much about networking, and I'm not in the club with, and especially because, after Megadeth, my father got cancer, and I went away from the music business and moved back to Ohio to help my mom save our family business. And that's a whole long story that I won't bore you guys with. And that's it. During that time when I was in Ohio, I was having a classical guitar made because I just wanted to do my own acoustic album. And I met this guitar maker who knew the Assad family, which is Sergio and Odair Assaji, who are the greatest classical guitar duo in history. They're from Brazil. And I produced their younger sister's #1 album for Verve Polygram. It's called Chameleon. Her name's Bajia Saji. And, everyone knows me in America and mostly from Megadeth. But I know we have a lot of Brazilians and people who speak Portuguese and who love Latin music watching today. So I'd hope you'd check out the album I did with Baji. It's called Chameleon on Polygram Verve. And we had an amazing world tour. We got to tour all over Europe. Our album was #1 in Germany. So we toured there for a month on the Autobahn, just playing beautiful festivals. We got to open for Joe Cocker. I'm like, how are we opening for Joe Cocker, this little Brazilian world music thing? Cassandra Wilson, this amazing jazz singer.
Yes.
Everyone needs to run out and hear Cassandra Wilson, her remake of Glenn Campbell's Wichita Lineman. And thank me later for that. We got to open for her in Germany. And we got to tour Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, places I didn't get to go with Megadeth. We got to play Lilith Fair with Sarah McLachlan, the festival in America. It was an all-female artist festival that was very successful for many years. We got to do that. Sheryl Crow, Christina Aguilera, Dixie Chicks, The Pretenders. So many great bands we got to meet and hang out with and become friends with on that tour. And it culminated with a performance at Farm Aid 2000, where this little Brazilian band, we find ourselves opening for Willie Nelson and Neil Young and John Mellencamp and Travis Tritt and the Bare Naked Ladies. And I'm saying, and we're on country music television in America. It's 2.5 million people watching, plus the festival crowd. I'm like, how did this happen?
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of people who don't know about this part of my career, I hope they go back and discover it, because it was every bit as cool as what I did in Megadeth, and a whole lot more musical, because I was working with some of the sickest players alive. I mean, on our album, we had 2 musicians from Weather Report. Alex Acuna, the percussionist, drummer.
Wow.
Alex Acuna and Abraham
I love
Laboy.
that guy. I love that guy.
Yeah.
I love both of them.
You know them both, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
When Abraham, you guys got to go on YouTube and check out. You can find, just search Baji Assad Chameleon. The whole album is on YouTube. Find the While My Guitar Gently Weeps, George Harrison Beatles song. We remade it, but we twisted it. We turned it into like a Argentinian tango. We gave it like a South American flavor.
Yeah.
And Alex did the percussion. Alex Acuna did the percussion. I'm getting chills again talking about. And here comes in the studio Abraham Laboyo Sr. His son's playing drums with Paul McCartney.
Yes. We know them right
comes
here.
The senior with his acoustic bass. He played so amazing that over the outro fade out of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, we just let him improv, and he does a solo over the fade out it'll make you weep. It's beautiful. And that was just 2 of the players on that record that we brought in some amazing. We went to Brazil and we had some of the most amazing Brazilian players join us. That was a real treat. And it really broadened my musical horizons, because again, that album was all about music without boundaries. We were taking, Baji had all these cassette tapes of all these, because she was a guitar player first because of her family and her brothers, but she got into singing and she started studying vocal styles like of pygmies in Africa, or Icelandic vocal stylings, or the Maori Indians from New Zealand, or in all these different types in mouth percussion. She was doing the mouth percussion before any of the rappers. This girl beats her whole face like a drum set in her throat, in her nose, and her mouth. It's the whole thing.
Wow.
You can see if you find a song by Giassagi Salais, that's a Portuguese word. It's a very obscure word. Most Brazilians don't even know that word, but Solais. That's a song where she beats her
Yeah.
face and her body like a drum set. So it was an amazing experience working and sitting at the feet of Sergio Dair Sad, because I got to hang out with the family at Christmas and holidays. And we spent New Year's Eve and the Millennium 2000 on Copacabana Beach, all of us. So I would see the brothers rehearse, you know, for their concert tours when they were going to play Carnegie Hall in the greatest concert halls of the world, when I'm just at the family house in Brazil. So I was soaking up the guitar knowledge like a sponge, just taking it all in.
Yeah, especially because Brazilian music is really rich. It
Pardon?
has Brazilian music is rich. It has everything. It has
That's what
everything you need for jazz, for
the pop
Latin
music
music.
on radio in Brazil has a lot more jazz chords
Yes.
Yeah.
and rhythms that are outside the 4/4 basic, what we hear in Western music. So much more adventurous. Just, I fell in love, and there's so many. Each region in Brazil has its
Maybe.
own style, and you know, for the carnival, they each have their own style of samba, and they're
Mhm.
so there's so many rhythms. You can just go down and take these rhythms and then put a rock vibe over it, and you've got a whole new style of music. You know, Sepultura did that with heavy metal, you know, bringing the Brazilian, and even Tool, the drummer from Tool, will bring a lot of world music influence into his drum beats. And I've always loved
That guy
that.
is amazing. Yeah, yeah. The guy is amazing. What's the most difficult thing you've ever done, technically speaking?
The new single that I did on nylon string guitar, that's the newest video on my YouTube at youtube.com/Jeff Youngtube. We were talking about just before you guys came on. The piece is called Fuoco Libre Sonatina, and it's a piece written by a friend of mine who's passed away, Roland Diaz, a phenomenal French composer. Uh, he wrote the song after he had a heart attack. So there's 3 movements in the piece, and each movement of the piece is about that experience of when he went through this heart attack. And fuoco is like the rebirth. Fuoco obviously means in Italian, that means fire. So, and the song is very fiery. And this, I had to learn it off sheet music. It's all written out. There's no tablature. So the song is so complicated because there's everything in there. Again, it's like shred guitar, but on a nylon string guitar. You hear shred, you hear flamenco, you hear classical, you hear blues. There's even a country lick. Everything in one song. The second I heard this piece back in the 2000s, I fell in love with it. And I listened to the song for 10 years before I even dared to attempt to try to play it. And it took me another 10 years to master it. Andres Segovia, the great, the grandfather of the classical guitar, said,
the greatest.
for these complicated pieces that you're asking, what are the most difficult pieces? These kind of pieces take 20 to 30 years to master.
Whoa.
Yes.
You have to get inside each measure, because each measure is like a magic trick, and the contortions like Cirque du Soleil for your hands.
Yeah,
So-
you know what? When I was in the school, I remember when I started, my teacher told me, "You came out here like a rocker. You think like a rocker. We're gonna take that out of your head, and you're gonna start playing classical music." So I start putting some music from Andres Segovia, and then Paco de Lucia. So he told me, "You're gonna learn right." So I understand totally what you
Paco!
say. Yeah, Paco Lucia. And he told me, you got a wrong, you got the wrong idea about how a guitar has to be playing. You got the noise in your head, but you got no technique. And if you have technique, you're gonna recognize something. You're gonna take time, and you're gonna take a lot of time to get it. So I learned it in that way, and I totally understand. As you said, it's very difficult to get the music, to get it perfect. Some
Hmm.
musicians not even half of it and never learn it because it takes time to get it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah. When you were mentioning how much I love music, and you have to, especially at this point, because there's not a lot of money in it. You know, people who anyone that thinks the music business this day and age is about sex, drugs, and rock and roll doesn't really get what's happening because it's there's no glory, you know, and it's I gave up my entire life. I mean, it was kind of destined. I guess I started playing viola in first grade when they came around with all the musical instruments in my school,
Hmm.
and I wanted to play the cello, and my mom wouldn't let me because I don't think she wanted to be the one to have to help me carry that around town everywhere I had to go to
Heavy.
rehearsals. So I got frustrated and I quit viola. But it's funny, all these years later, Monsoon, my first instrumental, my new instrumental album, uh, has a cellist, Tina Guo, amazing cellist. She's even on, you might have seen her jamming with Joe Bonamassa at Royal Albert Hall. She's amazing. Uh, I picked up tenor sax third grade when they came around with more band instruments. And I played tenor sax from third grade through eighth grade. And then I switched to baritone sax, which meant I had to learn bass clef to read, you know, that style of music because we didn't have our baritone sax person moved out of the school district and they didn't have one. So I had to learn that. And that at ninth grade is about when I discovered guitar. When I was 14 years old, my buddy had a guitar in his closet and he was playing. And I had bought a BB gun. You guys remember those BB guns we have as
Yes.
kids? I went up in the field near my house and I shot a rabbit and I saw that rabbit jump and I said, I'm done. I'm never shooting another animal. I went a couple weeks later, I went down to my friend's house and I saw he had a like $20, $30 cheap guitar in his closet. He wasn't playing. I go, what happened to the guitar? Why is it in the back of your closet? It's too damn hard to play. I said, yeah, you know what? I'll trade my BB gun for that guitar. And
That's the way
that
you
was the
started it.
beginning.
Deal.
And this is the thing. I gave up from that time. Once I discovered that guitar, I didn't go to any proms, dances, dates, parties.
You
Like I said, I
sacrifice all
wasn't
that.
drinking beer. The only clubs I went to was to go see bands so I could soak in what these bands that were touring around the Midwest in the US so I could see and learn. And I discovered a lot of new music by seeing all these more experienced bands, you know, and it's kind of like the life of a monk or a hermit where you're just it's let me tell you what it's like. It's like 2020 guitarists in 2020, we finally realized that our normal way of life, the way we live every day, is
Yeah.
called quarantine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Your house, you're hardly ever out. You don't socialize. You practice social distancing from everybody. So
Yeah, that sounds
2020
very
was no
familiar
big
to
deal for
me.
me because I've been doing it my whole life,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Well,
And and that's just my journey. Like most musicians are probably more social than that, and that's why they probably got the bigger gigs than me. I'm just more shy. Like I can talk on the radio when you hear me on the radio, and right now in an interview. But you know, I just stay this little studio from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. This is where I am. You know, unless I'm out riding my bike. And the weird thing is at this point, because people aren't buying music online, like people will stream your music for free. There's a meme I share on my social media. It's like people, they love your art until they have to to pay for it.
You're
You
totally
know,
right in that.
and there's really no reason to do it for money unless you're lucky and you can luck into some gig where you're getting a good salary. And many times over the past few years, I've contemplated selling all this gear and moving to a desert island and saying F it. But I know I've got 100 songs, more than 100 songs in a folder on my laptop, original ideas. And if the ideas were even like B level or C level, I would have sold my shit and moved. But everything I got's like A level stuff. You know, go listen to my music that I've given you the links.
Are you
That's why
making
I'm
music
doing
for
it.
somebody
I'm
right now?
doing it not for really anyone but myself, and I hope other people like it. It's because you got to get it out of you. If you're a musician, if it's in you, it's like when you got to throw up. If you drank too much, and you got to get it out. And you
Totally
can go
agree.
away from
Yeah.
music. I went away and worked in the family business once when my dad died and to help my mom. And then I did the Brazilian thing. And then my mother passed away from cancer. And I had to go back again and help my brother because this was also part of my financial stability in our family business. And so I went away, but no matter how far away you get from music, if it's in your blood,
Yeah,
it's like
yes.
You're always
heroin.
there.
You're never gonna. You're a musician,
Yeah.
whether you're playing the Monsters of Rock for 130,000 people with Megadeth, and Guns N' Roses is opening for you, or you're playing in a club in Vegas for 100 people.
Hmm.
Eddie Van Halen said the same thing. You're a musician. You know, it's about music. It's not about being a rock star, celebrity, or the only reason to have people know who you are is to find your music. And the only reason I make music and the reason I do a radio show, and this maybe it's romantic and naive in 2021, it's because I know that better than any medicine, better than any doctor, better than any witch doctor, music heals.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Frequency heals. Sound is frequency. There's even a therapy like acupuncture. It's called acutonics, where they treat you with different size tuning forks. You know, the tuning fork that you tune your guitar with?
Yes.
Different sizes, and they put it on your meridians. I had the treatment a couple times. It's amazing. It's non-invasive because they're not having to stick a needle. But think of the logic. Sound travels farther in water. That's why dolphins, whales, they can hear. And so think if you hit a tuning fork and you put it on your meridians and your different chakra points on your body, and that those sound waves, those invisible waves that we can't see with our eyes and everyone ignores, those waves are medicine. Just like you drop a pebble in a pond and you see that ripple. You can see that ripple and it's beautiful. You can't see the sound waves, but they're beautiful and they're magical. And they can heal this planet. They can heal disease. When notes are arranged right and music is arranged properly with a high frequency, not a frequency like Hollywood is trying to put out low frequency music to bring everyone's frequency down, to dumb down the masses. There's still musicians that are putting out music that has that high frequency that can, you listen to it and it's medicine.
Yes.
That's
you're
what I
right.
try to play on my show. You're not going to hear, you tune into my radio show, nothing you hear is on the radio. And I will play metal and jazz and classical and blues all in the same show, side by side, like brothers. Because
Yeah, sure.
everything is connected, nothing is separate.
You're totally
Right.
right in that.
And
Totally
Yes.
right.
the only
Totally
reason,
right.
and I think that's the noble thing about doing music right now in 2021, because there's no fame about it. There's no riches. The only reason to do it is if it's in your heart and you feel that you want to help raise the frequency and help give people that medicine, that uplifting vibration.
Yeah, sure.
Because every string on the guitar has a different vibration. Every chord you make, every note you play, then you add the bass and the drums and the horns and the strings.
It's a compliment.
That's better than any vaccine. That's better than any poison vaccine that they're trying to force on us right now. And did you know why
Totally right.
why the vaccines all have a purple lid? Do you notice that usually medicine has a blue lid on the lid of the medicine, and they use blue gloves? The reason why on the news you're seeing all the purple gloves and the purple lids, in the medical industry, the color purple has always signified poison. So I'm just saying. So it's your choice. You can take the poison vaccine, or you can. I'd rather inject, as Steven Tyler said on Night in the Ruts in the song "No Surprise." He said, "Vaccinate your ass with a photographed needle." That's my choice.
I didn't hear that
That's
before.
Jeff,
You're completely
So on
right.
Night in the Ruts, Aerosmith. The song is "No Surprise."
Oh,
That's
okay.
an amazing
Jeff.
Aerosmith album.
Jeff, I gotta ask you. We are two drummers here. Tell us about drummers. Which are the most amazing drummers you've played with?
Well, before that, let me tell you why he asking you that. Usually, when we make some live interviews, usually it's all drummers, and I'm the only one that plays different instruments. So I'm the intruder all the time. So now there's two guitar players, and now there's two drummers. So now he wants to know about the guitar players, thinking about the drummers. So that's the
been
reason
lucky.
he's doing this.
I've been
That's right.
blessed. I've been blessed not only to play with some amazing male drummers, and I'll tell you all the names, but I've played with some amazing female drummers. Let me start back. And well, the first drummer I played with out in Los Angeles, even before Megadeth, was Barry Brandt from the legendary band Angel. They were on the same label as Kiss. They dressed in all white and had the magic show. He was an amazing drummer, very much like John Bonham, and he taught me a lot about songwriting and arranging and producing. And he played on my first demo out there. I've been lucky lately that on all my new tracks that you'll find on my Bandcamp and the stuff that's coming out. Let me start with Shane Gallus, who's played with Michael Schenker, Yngwie Malmsteen, Vinnie Moore. He lives part-time in Japan and plays with a band called The Bees, and they sell out 2 nights at Tokyo Dome, like New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve Day. This guy's a brilliant drummer. You'll hear him on my new single, the vocal single, Gypsy Soul, that I was mentioning with the dobro guitar and stuff. Shane's amazing. Another drummer that I have on, he's playing on both Wave Rider, the song that's going to be coming out near summer, with Joe Hoekstra from Whitesnake joining me on guitar. And he's also on one of my newest singles, Slow Burn. And go listen to his drums on Slow Burn, Jeff Bowders. This cat plays with Paul Gilbert, Satriani, Justin Derrico from Pink. This guy's a beast. Jeff Bowders, he's not as known. And the groove to Slow Burn is it's a slower kind of halftime, a little bit Alice in Chains, but then it goes into like a weird hypnotic chorus where it's very syncopated. The drum beat on Slow Burn is deceptively difficult, and he plays it because, as a drummer, when you leave a lot of airspace, it's sometimes harder than playing really fast stuff where the notes are very close together. Same with guitar. Sometimes it's a lot easier to play fast shredding than playing more slow, bluesy, spaced out stuff. Slow Burn, I think, is a great example of that. And Jeff Bowders plays great on that. On my new single, In the Flesh, I got a drummer from Las Vegas, Jeff Tatora. He's been in Blue Man Group, if you know the show where
Yes,
the
Yeah,
guys are
sure.
in the blue face
I
paint,
heard him.
and it's all based around percussion. The whole show, and he's been in that show from the onset. He's toured the world with Blue Man Group. He's been practically to every country. He's also a singer. He's a amazing drummer. He's very much like Terry Bozzio
Wow.
meets John Bonham. If you could put Terry Bozzio and John Bonham in one, and I
One drum.
love Terry Bozzio. I mean, Missing Persons, that group, and Zappa and the stuff he did. He's one of my favorite drummers. So when you listen to In the Flesh, my single, you're going to hear some Terry Bozzio kind of drumming for sure, and even some surf drumming. I really like surf drummers and that whole kind of surf vibe.
Yeah.
So it's got kind of that vibe. Who else? Yeah, those are. And then with the Brazilian project, Chameleon, and on my Equilibrium solo album, let's start with Marco Susano. Let's put it this way. When Sting was in Brazil, he does a lot of things with the rainforest, and he speaks Portuguese and incorporates a lot of bossa nova and Brazilian in his own music. He was in Brazil and he needed a percussionist to do some recording, and he was asking around, who's the best guy? Who should I get? And everyone in Brazil, Marco Susano, Marco Susano. You guys know what Pandeiro?
Yes.
He's the guy that plays it like a drum set. Everyone in Brazil wanted this guy. He's on my album playing it like a drum set. This guy is out of hand. If you can check out an album, there's a Brazilian artist named Lenini. He's my favorite male, like new generation Brazilian artist. If you can find the album Lenini Susano, the whole album is nothing but pandeiro
Wow.
and nylon string guitar and vocal. It's amazing. Maybe some keyboards. Marco Susano is amazing. A drummer, Baji, and I toured with a female drummer, and she's a beast. And the way she played, she can do a drum set, but the way we had her play, because we were a trio, so Baji was in the center, and we would sit on drums. We had these big drums that were made out in Taos, New Mexico, that looked like tree stumps, like what Native Americans would play. And we'd sit on them as our stool, but then in the show, we'd stand up and all three people would be playing percussion. We'd be playing our seats, right? So Baji would be in the middle, I would be on the left, and Simone would be set up on this side of the stage with her drum set facing this way, so that people could see her feet work and see her. And she had dreadlocks and big tits, and she over the drums. It was a powerful show, and that was the show that we toured all over.
I believe
Simone
that.
Soul is her name, Simone Soul, and she played with Chico Ceza, who's a legend in Brazil. She was actually playing with Chico Ceza in Europe, and we opened for Chico, and we saw her play, and we snagged her. We had to steal her away.
You had the opportunity
So
to take
she's
her
in
out.
Brazil. I mean, there's some amazing drummers out there, and I love, on my. Let me get to the king on my solo album Equilibrium. Do you guys know Matt Chamberlain?
Yes.
Matt played on most of the album. And let me tell you Matt's discography, and this is just a few of his projects on his resume. When he was 16, his first gig was with Edie Brickell and the New Bohemians, and they had that huge hit. And she ended up marrying Paul Simon. He ended up being the drummer on the Saturday Night Live, the house band. And then he was from Seattle, so Pearl Jam recruited him. He was in the first Pearl Jam videos, like Alive and Even Flow that you saw on MTV. And then he played on Fiona Apple on her albums, her Grammy winning. Then he did like 6 albums with Tori Amos, who I'm a huge Tori Amos fanatic. She's one of the Mozarts of our time. I think just a brilliant prodigy on piano and songwriter. If anyone that doesn't know Tori Amos is, I don't know what music you're listening to. But the reason I wanted Matt on my album was because of how he played with Tori. and I saw him play. And because we were on Lilith Fair with Baji, and Sarah McLaughlin's manager knew Tori, and we were able to get a hold of Matt, and Matt flew to Florida. I was living in Sarasota. I had a carport. He had 20 road cases of all different percussion stuff delivered to my farm. And he stayed on my farm for like a week. Let me tell you, the last gig he did recently that I know about, he was the drummer in Soundgarden when Chris Cornell passed away. Not Matt Cameron, the original Soundgarden, Matt Chamberlain. This
Yeah, I
guy's
know
like a
Matt.
praying
He did
mantis
some
on
stuff.
drums.
Yes.
For me, he's the
Yes.
greatest drummer alive. The guy's just, he's a human looping machine. That's his nickname was with Tori. He did a lot of human looping where it sounds like a loop, but he's really playing it, but he's making his drums sound electronic or fucked up. Every day he would come in with different drums and the V8, that Roland V8 thing that had all the sounds in it. And one day he comes into the control room, real tall, and he walks in. He's got like a velvet smoking jacket and a Russian fur cap. And he's like, I'm ready to record, guys. And he was like dead serious, just the coolest guy. And I see why he gets all the gigs. He's recorded with David Bowie, Robert Fripp, Christina Aguilera, Keith Urban. Just Google Matt Chamberlain's discography and you'll be blown away if you're a drummer or percussionist. And he's someone you should really listen to, because I got to spend a week with him on my farm, and he changed my life. And I always said, like, both the Chameleon album, but especially the Equilibrium album, you could erase the guitars, the vocals, and you could just listen to the percussion and it would stand on its own, because I had all these different percussionists, Moni Soul, Marco Susano, Matt Chamberlain, all these percussionists are on that record. So I've been really lucky with the drummers. And like I said, you guys are badass. I'll be calling you up for a future project.
Okay.
Because Latin, I know you Latin guys have a feel.
Yeah,
See,
you have different styles
American
here.
guys, American drummers, they don't have some of that Latin. Like, you want them to play a samba or some of the, like when I mentioned the cavaclino, they're like, huh? What's a cavaclino? Maracatu, another amazing rhythm from Brazil.
Yes.
One of the songs, Infinite, on Equilibrium on my album, the whole song is based around maracatu. Actually, the title of the song, before we put lyrics to it, was called Maracatu. So that rhythm is so beautiful. And you have to have the characteristic Brazilian instruments or it doesn't sound like maracatu. So there's that one squeeze box thing that's like, woo, woo, woo. I don't even remember. Cuica. It's amazing. Yeah. We had all that stuff on Equilibrium. We'd go get a giant, if we wanted thunder, we didn't want to use a sound effect. We get a giant piece of plastic and cut it. It sounds like thunder.
Yeah.
Special effects, huh?
That album, both Chameleon and Equilibrium were great albums because we were making instruments out of things that you'd get at the hardware store or that you'd find in your closet, turning a bathroom copper pipe into a flute,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, these things like
music without boundaries. There's no rules.
Yeah.
Creativity. Yeah.
Have you made
That's
music
what I
for
learned
somebody?
in Brazil, because at the time when I lived in Brazil was like 1998, 9, 2000.
Let me ask you something.
And the
Jeff.
poverty, it was very poor. So what I learned from Brazilians, but G had a lot of friends who were like, even the fashion designers, the artists, they didn't have the money for the expensive things or the expensive accessories to make their fashions or to make their art. So they would go to junkyards or dumpsters and they would turn trash or cheaper materials into beautiful art.
Let me ask you something, Jeff. Did you ever get to meet Hermeto Pascual there?
I got to know, these are names that as an American, I never knew. Americans, we don't know Pascual. We don't know Caetano Veloso. We don't know Jobim. We don't know the godfather of bossa nova. He wrote "Girl from Ipanema," and most Americans you say Carlos Antonio Jobim, and they what? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Gilberto Gil, another, to
Yes.
discover all these amazing Brazilian legends. Again, it just shows in each of our country, you got to realize the country where you live, your entertainment machine is showing you a very narrow window of what's out there in the world. And in America, especially in America, there was an arrogance about America. We're number one and all that bullshit. So a lot of Americans didn't look outside of our own borders for this to discover Paco de Lucia or a Brazilian band like
Hmm.
Wakchi, who are making. Do you know what this band does? Do you guys know about Wakchi? They're the ones that did those PVC. They before Blue Man Group, they made those things in Brazil. They also did a really cool thing on one of their albums uh, where they took a turntable and he made an arm, like this long wooden arm. So when the turntable spun, then he just started sitting different things that would make musical sounds around the stage. So this turntable is spinning and it's hitting these different things and making music, and it starts to make a rhythm, and then the rhythm becomes the song.
That's
Wow.
nice. I remember that we have Horacio Negro Hernandez one day, and he was telling us about how he learned drums. At that time, he didn't have money to buy, the patches for the drums, the drum heads. So they used to go to the near hospital, and the X-ray films. So they used to get those films, heat them up a little bit, put them on top of the thumb, put the things, the nails and everything, and then heat it up a little bit more, and then start doing pressure on it. And
That's the
that was the
skin.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That was the drum heads for every single tom, because he said he didn't have the money to do that, especially in Cuba where he grew up. They didn't have anything, so he said, "I don't care too much about tuning. I care about the sound. Sounds good. It's good for me. But tuning, we didn't know nothing about that before because we didn't have the right drum heads. We made them, so that was totally different than what we can do now. So you're
Yeah.
totally right. People in those places, they have more creativity to do things and create sounds, create instruments, and a lot of things that probably here in America we don't have, or we haven't listened.
That's what happens when you're not spoiled.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Once
You
I
don't
got
have
to
everything at your
meet.
beck and call. Again, people in
Yes.
Brazil and third world countries, they have to be more creative because there's no money. So if you want to do something, you got to find a way to do it. I mean, even if you've seen that movie, It Might Get Loud, the guitar movie with Jack Black, Jimmy Page, and The
Yes.
Edge.
Uh-huh.
First scene shows Jack White. I said Jack Black. I meant Jack White.
It's not Jack White.
Jack White on a
Yeah.
porch making a guitar out of a little piece of wood and a wire and a nail, and he makes a little electric instrument with one string and starts playing slide guitar. You know,
Yeah.
that's what's
Yeah.
fun about music.
Once again, once again, music is life. Once I got the chance to meet Trilo Gurtu. You guys know that guy?
Oh,
He's
Trilo Gurtu,
an
yeah.
Indian percussionist. And I asked him, where did you learn to play like that? Because the guy's a monster. He's really a monster. And he said, my grandmother. His grandmother taught him to play like that. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, he's great. He made the sounds and with his mouth, and then he transformed it into beats and stuff like that. And he's fast, and he don't use a real drum set. He use I don't know, a weird set that
It's an
he's sitting in
hybrid
the
he
yeah.
made. Yes.
He made it. He made all the whatever he plays, he made it. So he's an
And he was
awesome
taught by
drummer.
his grandmother. Can you believe that?
He's an Indian drummer. Just
Yeah.
later you will look at it. But yeah, well, one of the last questions probably that we're gonna have for you. We want to know if you want to, or if you're gonna be working with different artists now, or you planning to get it some collaboration with somebody.
Oh, that's what I've been doing since the Brazilian project, on Chameleon, on Equilibrium, on all my stuff. That's kind of the way I do it. And it's a cool way to do it right now with the way the music industry is, especially now we can't tour. So that's out. I have a stable and a network of friends. I don't know a lot of musicians, but I've named some of them that I know.
Yeah.
So when I write a song, I think, all right, what drummer is gonna have the right style or the right feel for this song? I have an amazing bass player. We haven't even talked about Rick Firabachi. He's played
Yeah.
with everyone from Stevie
Oh
Wonder,
man, you play with
Chick
Rick?
Corea, Chick Corea,
Man, I
Yeah.
know that
Johnny.
guy.
He's out touring with Blood. He's my bass player, dude. He's on
Man, that
Monsoon.
guy is a monster. I know him pretty
Get
well.
on my
Yeah.
Bandcamp. All those bass parts are him.
Wow.
Wow.
He's my favorite
That
bass
guy's a
player, dude.
monster.
This
Yeah.
guy is off the hook. He's out now touring with Billy Cobham.
Yeah,
Let's
he
talk
is.
about drummers.
Yes.
Billy Cobham
I
influenced
heard
John
him,
Bonham, right? So he
Jeff. I
tours
heard
right
him
now. He
playing
switches
with.
off with Blood, Sweat, and Tears and Billy Cobham, but he's played with everyone. That's another one. Look at Rick Firabachi's list. He's played with Shakira, everybody.
Yeah,
Hmm.
And so
I heard. I heard an
when I need a
album.
bass, I
But
make one phone call. I just call.
yeah, the three Italians. You know, it was Rick, it was Virgil Donati, and it was Frank Gambale.
Oh,
Man,
my whole
out
picking
of the
style,
hook.
dude. My whole right hand picking style is a blend of George Benson and Frank Gambale, because Frank was my teacher at GIT. I do all that sweep picking. I got his book. Look, through Frank's book, I spent the last 4 years. Here's when he had hair. You can see the books falling apart now.
I had that book too.
Yeah.
When I was
It's called
14 years
speed
old.
picking,
Yeah,
right?
when
Hold
I
on, let me show you the cover. This is how old I bought this when I was going to GIT. He published it that year when I was going to GIT. Look how old it is.
Wow.
Man.
yeah,
Awesome.
I had
Man.
that one too. I bought that one too when I was 14 years old.
It's so hard. You gave up on it, right?
Yeah,
I
you
Yeah.
can't.
myself to go through this whole book, because the weakness in every guitar player's playing, I'll tell you, is their upstrokes. Every guitar player's playing, your weakness is your upstrokes. That's why hybrid picking,
Yeah,
that's why when you sweep pick, it sounds clear on the way up and like mud on the way back. I spent 4 years just working my upstroke,
Wow.
because I said, what's the weakness of everybody else out there except Frank? And then I spent 4 years. Now it's been 5 years mastering this book and teaching my students. And I even took it farther, because like he remapped three pentatonic patterns. I ended up finding there's 5. So I've remapped the entire pentatonic. If anyone wants to do Skype lessons, I can show you. And it allows you to play the pentatonic scale. Like, just if I had someone sit next to me and, okay, play as fast as you can up and down with the 2-note pentatonic, and then I did it, it would be like 3 times faster, and it sounds more melodic. There's something about Frank's playing. It's very melodic, even when it's fast.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
cool thing
Yes.
about it is, now that I've discovered this and come up with all these new patterns and really worked my upstrokes, I discovered there's a million new melodies that have never been played in history.
yeah, you're right.
You can't play them unless you get this technique. And the way I do it isn't the way Frank does it, because he's Frank and I'm Jeff. And so he has his own style. But so Frank, I love, and he was one of my great teachers at GIT, and he's a huge influence. Virgil Donati, if you guys haven't heard his new album, it's incredible.
Yes, I did. Yes, incredible.
It's
Yes.
incredible. I I play that on my show all the time. So that's the kind of music I play on my radio show.
You
That's and
play
his
good
guitar
music then.
players are amazing. His guitar player is Brazilian.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
playing
I
on that
know.
Mm.
Virgin. He's
Yes.
amazing. His name's Andre. I forget his last name, but he's brilliant. Um,
Yeah, actually, he's right now in Italy. He's doing
so yeah, that's
some
my.
stuff there.
I have, like I told you, I the only reason to do music for me right now is because I'm looking. I can see it right on my desktop. It says JY songs, and there's about 150, 175 song ideas that are in various. Some of them are like 75% finished, 80%, 90%. Some of them are only 5% finished. It's like if you went up in an artist's loft and he was painting and he had 100 paintings, some would be almost finished, some just beginning. And I have all these ideas, and with
I want to hear that.
how many breaths I got left and how many heartbeats I got left in this life, I want to just get as many songs finished as I can, just to leave
I
them
want to hear that already.
leaving the music behind for. But I know, like today, I'm listening to Django Reinhardt and getting off on it. And he was, in the Moulin Rouge in Paris in 1940s, and I'm getting off on it today. So maybe someone like me will be getting off on my music, 50, 100 years from now.
And it will be because there's people right now talking about that solo. Actually, it was one of the best solos I've ever heard, and with Megadeth. I don't know if you want to talk
In My
about that.
Darkest Hour,
Exactly. And I remember
I
when I heard,
improvised that.
yeah,
Just
I can see because I never heard it before. Played like, I mean, that's an iconic solo. I haven't heard another musician play the solo after you from Megadeth play the same way you played it.
it's. I'm going to teach. I think I'm doing a instructional book. I'm writing a guitar book, and my first instructional book, and I'll teach how to play that for sure. That solo in the book, and maybe I'll do like a stage it or a YouTube lesson and show. The thing about that solo, and I'm looking at my guitar, I'm just trying to visualize the solo. What I was trying to accomplish, that was the first solo I recorded on the album. Dave Mustaine gave me a cassette tape, and it didn't have the whole song. There was no vocals. It was just the solo with maybe like 30 seconds before and maybe 10 seconds after. And he pushed the record. He goes, okay, we want you to start here
and finish there.
and finish there. See you tomorrow. And so I had to come back the next day, and no one was there. The engineer, Paul Lanny, was there, and the second engineer, and I think maybe Chuck Bueller, the drummer, and maybe David Elfson was there. I'm not sure if Elfson was there, but I remember, like, if the mixing board was here, I was kind of shy. I went to the back of the room and I turned my back to everybody like this.
So nobody can see you.
What I was trying to accomplish, I took that cassette home the night he gave it to me, and luckily, and I guess this is the last lesson for everybody, like success and like making it to that level. And this isn't anything new. This is a cliche, and it's a cliche because it's true. Success is when preparation and luck intersect, right?
Yeah, you're totally right in
Just
that.
happened. I had just graduated from GIT 4 years before. I've been trying to put bands together. I was getting kind of frustrated, but I was practicing a lot. I remember at that time I was working on a lot of Gary Moore, and you can hear it in that solo. And I'm going to mention that. And Alan Holsworth licks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And that's what you hear.
Totally different.
The very first opening lick is a chromatic Alan Holsworth, and I did that because I'm replacing Chris Poland, and he's very influenced by Alan Holsworth and Jeff Beck and John McLaughlin. So all of Chris's playing is very legato, sounds very much out of the Alan Holsworth school. So, and as well, that's why I was able to figure Chris Poland solos out, because I had similar influences and I wanted to give something that sounded similar for the first thing and then go off into something different with a lot more picking, more like Al Di Meola, Gary Moore.
Yeah.
So when you hear that solo, it starts out legato, where you're not picking every note, and it's a very strange chromatic pattern that I'm playing. The reason why it's hard for the other Megadeth guitarists to play that thing, like even if they could get the notes by ear, which would probably be hard because they're all close together because it's chromatic. But I'm playing it with one. It's 3 frets apart, but I'm playing it with 1, 2, and 4 to get the pull off faster. Because if I did it with 3, you can't get the pull off fast enough. So this finger is out of the equation. So that whole first run is just with 1, 2, and 4, and I'm ascending, and then it's got the whammy bar thing. And then after the whammy bar, which was kind of Steve Vai, I was listening to a lot of Flexible. I love that one Steve Vai album, Steve Vai Flexible, and using the whammy bar not just to go and just dive bomb like noise, but to make notes.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, so I made a melody, and then started more fast Al Di Meola, Gary Moore kind of stuff to end it, and then kind of Yngwie, Paco de Lucia kind of at the end. So
Wow.
all those influences that are all the players that I love, and Eric Johnson, the guitarist, always says that as well, that our playing, it's an amalgamation of all the players that we love.
Mm-hmm.
And I could list 50 players right now that I know that are all oozing out. They can come out at any time when you're playing because, from Eddie Van Halen to Yngwie Malmsteen to Randy Rhoads to Alan Holdsworth to Steve Morse, Paco de Lucia, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Sure.
Want to get into the Brazilian people? If you don't know Rafael Rebelo, he was the Paco de Lucia of
Yeah, I heard it.
Brasilia.
Yes,
And
it was
he passed
great.
away also, but he
Yes.
and Paco actually recorded together. If you can hear the work that Rafael Rebelo and Paco de Lucia did together,
Yeah,
you won't be
I heard
asking
it.
about Megadeth. You won't be worrying about that kind of guitar playing anymore.
Well, right here you got 2 drummers. They're rockers too, and they play different instrument, not instruments, but they can play like percussion too, and that kind of like Latin drumming too. So whenever you have a chance, like I'm gonna,
You guys friend me on Facebook and send me a message and let me know, and I'll definitely be in touch because again, a lot of this stuff I do has a Latin feel, and the American drummers don't do that.
yeah,
Sure.
for
It's going to be a
for,
pleasure, Jeff.
for
Sure.
There's nothing. I
American.
mean, it's where you grow up. It's when they say there's something in the water down there. If you grow up in Texas, you're
Yeah.
gonna play like Stevie Ray Vaughan or
Yeah,
Pink.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
If you grew up in California, you were gonna play like Eddie Van Halen or Warren DeMartini.
Yeah,
or
you're
Randy
totally right in
Rhoads.
that.
If you grow up in Spain, they have nylon strings in every house, or in Brazil, there's a nylon string.
Yeah.
So maybe you're starting on nylon string before electric and you're down a whole trip. I mean, the flamenco guitarist out of Spain will eat any American guitar players. These guitar players in America who think they can shred, they need to like sit down and listen to Tomatito. And they need
Oh,
to sit
yeah.
down and listen to
Yeah.
Vicente Amigo.
Yeah.
Amigo. Yeah.
Vicente Amigo. He's
Yes.
flamenco, but he loves Pat Metheny. So he brings
Yes.
something different.
Just
And the
people
guy who
out of the
makes the
world.
acoustic pickups, Carlos Juan, for this guitar. This is a $400 guitar, but it has a $400 guitar. I think it might be a $500 guitar pickup system. Vicente Amigos pickups. He lives in Spain, and he makes the pickups for all the gypsy jazz players, all the flamenco players. Tomatito, Vicente Amigo are his buddies, and no American guitar players even know those 2 guys. And
Yeah,
two
they're
great
very good.
living guitar players in history.
Yeah, those guitar
Yes.
players, for the people that doesn't know and want to learn about it, there's some of the best guitar players in Latin America. I mean,
And
great.
again, they're doing it with no Marshall stack, no pedals, distortion effects.
Yeah, they're
Just
clean.
with and a flamenco guitar has even less sustain than a classical guitar. It's a more percussive kind of instrument. Eric Clapton always said, And that's why after my back accident, if I was going to come back and I couldn't even make an E chord 4 months ago after I got hit by that car, I'm not going to come back and do something. I had to come back and do something that was going to shock the unsuspecting bystanders. So I
Yeah.
picked the hardest song and I did it on nylon string guitar, naked with no drummer, no band. That's the new video on my YouTube. And, you know, Eric Clapton always had a saying. He said, if you want to see if a guy can really play guitar, like really play guitar, turn off his amp, unplug his amp, and hand him an acoustic. Because then
That's
you'll
so
find out
true.
if they can really play.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, in closing, and another thing about Brazilian and Spanish and classical flamenco guitar versus Western music is that on a solo guitar, you are the counterpoint. You're playing counterpoint. Like I didn't mention, I'm born the same day as Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, on March 31st. I think he's a little older than me, but that's why I always said I got a lot to live up to if I'm born on the same day as Bach. But American music, if you think about like rock and roll, the counterpoint is coming from the musicians. You've got the drums doing one thing, the bass is doing another thing, the guitar's doing another thing. There's your counterpoint. But you don't have the guitar player a lot of the time doing a walking bass line or beating on his guitar, doing the percussion part. You know what I'm saying? Where nylon string guitar, flamenco and classical players who really burn, it's like surfing.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's the highest form of guitar art. And that's why when people ask me about Megadeth and Dave Mustaine, I'm always like, the first thing do you realize that I sat at the feet of Sergio and Odair Assaji, who were trained by one of Segovia's proteges, and you're asking me about Megadeth riffs? That it's like kindergarten. You know?
Yeah.
Then I send them one video, and I'll send it to you right when we sign off.
Yeah.
Send it to everyone. I'm going to send you a video by Sergio Odair. This is the video that I send to people who message me about Megadeth and ask me. I say, you don't really want to know about, this is what you want to know about.
Yeah, sure.
You want to know what I learned from these guys.
Yeah. There's a
And
lot
when you
of
see
good
the
musicians.
video, you'll probably want me to come back on again to talk about what I did learn from those guys. But you'll hear it in my music because you hear, if you listen to my music, what I learned from, it's a product of what I learned from every great musician. Let's just bring this to an end. When I moved out to GIT, because Tommy Tedesco from Wrecking Crew was there. Frank Gambale was teaching at GIT. Scott Henderson was there. All the way along to the teachers I met in Brazil. Finally found a great flamenco teacher along the line. Got to study with Tuck Andrus, great jazz guitar player. Pat Martino, another great jazz guitar player. All the great players that came to GIT, from Steve Morse, Rush came in there, gave workshops. So everything that I say, I'm just a byproduct or a descendant, a disciple of just all the great teachers that I've been lucky enough to meet and humble enough to listen to.
Yeah.
And take in what they had to teach me, instead of thinking that I knew it all and saying that, no, I'm just about metal or die.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That happened a lot for me. Like I started with metal, and then I met Mr. John Scofield, and then everything changed.
He's amazing.
I was telling Luis about my experience learning from him directly, and he taught me a lot. And he told me something really, really important. And it's like a musician is a musician even if you don't want it. And you don't have to be better than everybody else. You have to be better of yourself every day and learn how to be humble and make music. That's the most important thing. And he is one of the greatest. A lot of people probably in Latin America doesn't know who he is.
I sure do, buddy. And
Yeah.
let me recommend people. Here's an album, and it's funny that we're talking about this because he did the whole album on a flamenco guitar.
Yeah,
It's
he
called
did.
John Scofield Quiet.
Yes, it's only guitars.
Quiet. John Schofield Quiet. Get that album. It's all based around solo flamenco guitar. Killer, dude. I'm glad you brought Schofield up. He's
Yeah,
killer.
he's one of the greatest, and I'm happy to be part of the group of people he taught in guitars.
Well, you're lucky. If you study with him, you're lucky.
That was a long time ago.
And again, but all those things, it doesn't matter how young we are. I remember again my
Yeah,
first classical guitar teacher in Dayton. I remember things he taught me every day when I'm practicing, how to keep my fingers more in a classical position than laying them down lazy like a blues player who doesn't know what he's doing. All the different things that you learn from each person that crosses
you're
your
right.
path, and hopefully people who listen to this show learn some stuff today from all of us. And
Yeah, you're
that's
right.
how we pay it forward and pass it on. And that's what music's about. Again, it's about
For sure.
frequency out of your core to
Hmm.
heal the universe, to heal this planet, to raise the frequency of people because everyone's hurting out there, man. And again, what I learned traveling around, at the end of the day, everyone wants to, if everyone could, they'd
Hmm.
love to go to a great rock concert and dance with their girl and their friends and drink, maybe smoke a little and go home, make some
Yeah,
beautiful love and sleep and do it all over again the next day. All right.
yeah. Um,
Music is
For
life,
sure.
is music is life, is music is life,
yeah.
etc. Rinse and repeat.
Jeff, I want to ask you something. Are open to record with people like people looking for guitar
Yeah.
players?
Show me the
Usually,
money.
yeah, yeah.
Show me
Usually,
the money.
usually, there's a lot of musicians that now are open to record with everybody. It doesn't matter if you're famous or not.
Huh?
Uh, and the thing is, this, as you said, you had to reinvent yourself. Why?
I was
Because
doing this COVID jam thing, bringing Equilibrium. I do have some well-known players on my solo. I'm like Equilibrium
uh-huh,
or like Matt Chamberlain,
uh-huh,
Tony Franklin from the Firm and Blue
mm-hmm,
Murders on there as well.
mm-hmm,
But that was one of the coolest things was bringing unknown musicians that people don't know. I have some
mm-hmm.
of the greatest unknown singers on Equilibrium and players that you've never heard of, or at least people that in most of the world have never heard of. That's the best thing because a name is nothing. It's like they say, "Are you famous?" And if anyone asks me that, I always look around and go,
Yeah,
"I don't know.
the
What
thing is,
town am I in? What
the
town
thing
am I?"
is, a lot of people think that,
Depends
oh,
what
he's
town you're in.
famous.
Where
Hey, a lot of people think, oh, he's famous. He's not. I will never gonna afford to pay him and to play in my one of my songs or something like that. So I just want to let people know that they might can be in contact with you, and
yeah,
if they have a good project or a good idea, they can talk to you and probably get him in a recording and in a song. The same thing from Guille, and same thing for Louis. They're open. There are independent musicians too, recording musicians for people who's gonna be listened everywhere where this interview is gonna go. Uh, you're gonna be having a good, I mean, a good recording musicians here for any kind of style you might have in your head to record. For drumming, percussions, and well, for a legend, for Jeff here. So thank you very much, Jeff, for your time. I appreciate that. We were having talks about having before today. We couldn't make it, but now we did it. So
hope everybody had fun.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of people gonna have fun.
So, and just
So
let me leave some links for you guys if you want to check out the radio show.
yeah.
It's every Wednesday morning right now. I'm worldwide. It's on the Spreaker Broadcast Network. The link is jeffyoungjams.com. I go live at 10:11. That's 11 minutes after 10 a.m. in New York, Eastern Standard Time. West Coast, that's 7:11 a.m. Whatever time it is, wherever you are on the planet, it's super hi-fi, best music you'll hear anywhere. jeffyoungjams.com, and there's 10 years of archives there, back episodes. Um, My main site is jeffyoungsongs.com. That's my main hub. And if you want to check my Bandcamp, a lot of the stuff we talked about and all my newest singles, there's 4 singles, Monsoon, In the Flesh, Slow Burn, and Fuoco Libre Sonatina at instrumentalguitar.net. And if people, I'm gonna give one link out for listeners of this show that most people, I don't really publicize it, but since we were talking about my upcoming singles, if you check out my SoundCloud, Jeff Young Music on SoundCloud, Wave Rider is up there. You can see the songs in process. It's just the basic tracks. Joe Hoekstra's solos there, but I got to put all my solos. It's not mixed. And the basic tracks to Gypsy Soul is there. And some other, and Slow Burn is also streaming there. So that's Jeff Young Music on SoundCloud.
Great.
Okay, cool.
Well, you have a lot of place to go.
Yeah.
All right. So something that Guille want to say before we leave?
Yeah. I want to thank you, Jeff, for giving us all this teaching talk for all the people, not just only us, for all the people around the world. And I really appreciate your time and your thoughts and everything that you share with us today. I'm really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Jeff.
My pleasure. I hope you had fun. I hope I shed some light on some interesting topics and some stuff maybe people didn't know they wanted to know, but hey, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luis, want to say something before we leave?
Yes, today I got to know one of the multiple faces of Jeff Young. Sometimes when you hear someone in a record or with a very famous band, you think you idealize people.
Yeah.
You don't think of them as they really are, and that's the proof today. You are really a person committed to music. You love music, and I love you for that.
Well, I
Really,
love you guys,
thank
and
you.
I thank you for listening. And yeah, anytime you get me talking about music, you know you're going to be talking for a while.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, thank you
okay.
very much
Don't
for your
worry about it.
time and for your knowledge, man. It's been a pleasure, really.
Well,
Cool.
well, thank you very much
If
for
anyone
everybody
wants
else.
Skype lessons too, I do Skype lessons. So just hit me up.
Okay.
Find me Jeff Young Music at gmx.com. And I do Skype lessons at reasonable rates with students all, I have
Nice.
students all over the world from here to Japan and back.
All right. So all the people that listen right now, I want to take some classes and learn some guitar, not just heavy metal, but any kind of style. You have Jeff right now as.
Any style but polkas. I don't teach.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, now we know. So yeah, for everybody who wants to get some classes and learn a little bit more about guitars and get some more different styles to get into, you can hit up into Jeff Young and trying to get more music into your head. Now, well, thank you very much for everybody to listen. I hope everybody has a good time, and well, I see you guys later and with the next one. All right.
Thank you very much. Stay safe, everyone.
All right.